Okay, hi there everyone. Here we are again, day 55 of compassionate response to COVID-19. So today I've got my friend Sumana on board. So I'm going to be introducing Sumana, and so Sumana's been in the order since 1980, is it something? Oh, you muted Sumana.
Yeah, 78, 1978.
Oh, 78, right, okay. Yeah, so Sumana's a great friend of mine, and musician, banjo player, hobo, beatnik. I like the beatnik era as well, that sort of thing. So what we're going to do, I'm going to interview Sumana later on, but before that, we're going to do a bit of body work, and then some meditation. So if you want to all stand up, and we'll do that. Okay, so beginning by just rub your hands together. Just create some heat. Take a few deeper breaths, and then just put your hands on your face, and just experience the warmth in your hands. Rub your hands together again. And then put your hands on your face. And just experiencing the moisture in the air, the moisture in your breath, your feet touching the ground, the experience of your clothing on your skin. So we're trying to move away from the world of thoughts and planning, that sort of thing, and worrying, into the world of physical experience, grounding ourselves in physical experience. This is how one of the ways we become calmer. We connect with something tangible, our tangible experience, our body, our senses. And just drumming with your fingers on top of your head. And just give your back of your neck a little bit of a drumming with your fingers, and sides of your head, your temples. Been influenced by Dharma Bandhu here, so a bit of stroking on your face. And just stroking down your arms, down your torso, down your sides, just waking up your skin. And then just take your elbow into one palm of your hand and go over the top there, try to get onto your spine so that you're waking up your spine, waking up the tops of your shoulders. And then other side. And then shake everything out. Hands, feet, head. Will be in a good state on its own. We don't need to give it any attention if it's woken up. Shower, often we just think about a hot shower, but we can alternate hot shower, cold shower, hot cold, and we need the stimulation as well as the relaxation. because the stimulation helps take the relaxation deeper into the body. So we're not just relaxed on the surface and then tense on the inside. And on the palms of your hands. And up the inside of your arm. Then the other side. Back of your hand, again, painful, a bit painful. On your chest. Make it quite vigorous. It'll make a difference to your confidence. Then we're just going to do a little bit of the kind of Maori thing, you know, the haka. So just this is from Tai Chi. So all at the same time, we're going to do ha like that. So I want you to open everything up. Open your mouth, open your gaze, open your hands, open your body. So 1, 2, 3. Let it come from down here somewhere, down in your belly. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Like you're trying to frighten the lion away or something. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Shake everything out. And drumming on your kidneys at the back there, and then onto your buttocks, backs of your legs. And okay, then take a seat for meditation. Anyway, Sumana, are you there?
I am here.
Oh, we just see.
For this.
We can just see. You can
I've got
see.
the fruit vision in.
Yeah. There you are.
That's a meditative.
Oh, it'd be good to see you though. That's better. Okay, hang on, let's get my belt. Oh, okay, so hopefully that's got us a little bit ready for meditation. Got the body a bit ready. So sitting on a chair or cushions on the floor, try and make the chair, it needs to be a little bit firm so that you're not sinking into it. And then tuning into your body and it being in this new position. And just allow your mind to calm down, quieten down. So often in meditation, what we start by doing is like being aware of our situation. So being aware of yourself in time and space. So first of all, being aware of time. So having a sense of all the moments that you've experienced in the past. So often in meditation, when we're trying to bring something to mind, it often takes time. We just have to be patient. So just waiting for yourself to arrive into an awareness of having a past. And also the fact that you have a future, hopefully. So being aware of all the moments that you will experience in the future. And that right now you exist in a particular moment in time, which is the present moment. So just waiting for yourself to put down your thoughts and just be present, be here in the present moment, arrive into the present moment. Bringing everything along with you, your feelings, your body, your thoughts. So whatever's going on, just allowing it to be there. And then it's also the case that you exist in space. So you're sitting on the earth, which is a huge, great ball of matter flying through space. And above your head is the atmosphere, which is about 10 miles thick. And then vast empty space beyond that. And on the earth there are oceans and land masses and mountain ranges and forests, deserts, cities. And you're in the particular place that you're in. So again, just waiting to arrive into that place. And then you have a body, so your body has a particular structure to it. It's got bones to support the body's weight, muscles to move it about, organs to keep it alive. So just tuning into the actual structure of your particular body. Try to sense where the bones are, where the muscles are, the organs. And just letting your body just sit there. We don't need it to use any act of will to hold the body up. The body is quite capable of just sitting there. And all you have to do is to just balance your spine so that your weight goes down into the chair or the cushions. And then your mind and emotions can just be free to engage with the meditation. They don't need to be involved with the body. And your muscles can relax, can soften. So relaxation is a physical thing, it's just like unfurling a fist. So having a sense of just unfurling any tension in your body, letting it fall away down towards the ground. Mindfulness of breathing practice. So watching the breath come into the body, watching it leave the body, and then at the end of the out breath just counting 1 in your head silently, and then breathing in, breathing out, count 2, breathe in, breathe out, count 3 until you get to 10, and then starting again from 1. So we're going to do 2 stages of this meditation. So every time your mind has wandered off onto something else other than your breath, doesn't matter, don't worry about it, just come back to the next breath, just breathe in, watch your breath come in, watch it come out, and then count 1 again, start from 1. the second stage of mindfulness breathing, all we do is just move the count to before the breath begins. Same sequence of counting 10 breaths at a time, but just before the in-breath. But if you're struggling at all, just come back to the actual situation that you're in, where you are, when this is, the fact that you've got a body, it has a structure to it. You can always just be aware of the actual situation that we're in. If we're looking for grounding and reassurance, and then moving back to being aware of the breath anytime you're ready, but make it your decision. So each moment is an opportunity to connect with ourselves, an opportunity to relax a bit more. So we're not trying to get through the meditation to the end, bypass it, we're trying to just be in it and use it for whatever we want to use it for. So in your own time, just bringing the meditation to a close. How you doing, Sumana?
Okay, yes. I'm here. This morning
Yeah.
in Haggerston.
In Haggerston, in East London, yeah. Trendy city, you know.
Close to the canal.
Yeah. So, so the idea. So this is the second. The third in this series of Meet the Order. 2 days ago, I had a chat with Dharma Bandhu about his life, and Dharma Bandhu and Sumana are just long-time great friends, and well, I thought we're all friends, aren't we? We're all kind of
We're all friends.
Yeah. We've all known each other 30 years.
Different degrees.
Yeah, 30 years. And then yesterday Dharma Bandhu introduced us to Padmasambhava and his flat and all his shrines in his flat, and we did a blazing light puja, which was great. To Padmasambhava. So, and then today, I've got Sumana here, and tomorrow I'm giving Sumana the space to do whatever he wants. I want people to see what the order members are like. See what my friends are, see what it's like to be in the order. Because I think it was a series on coping with isolation. I introduced the Meghiya Sutta, which is the Buddha talking about how you work in meditation, really, and the first thing that you need is to have Kalyana Mitrata, or to be around, have a kind of beautiful friendship, or to be around people who you admire and you want to be around, and who, because it's what's most convincing to us is when somebody embodies something. So I think Dharma Bandhu really embodies something, and I think Sumana really embodies something, and I think the thing that Sumana really embodies most of all is kindness. He's just known as one of the kindest people in the order. Very gentle guy, and he's also a musician, a banjo player, and he's in his 70s. Do you mind me saying that?
Coming up to the second half of my 70s in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah. So cards, postcards, and in the post. So one thing I really, one way we really connect with Sumana is like he's a musician, and I went to America at the end of my first year at university in 1974, and I did a hitchhiking trip around. In those days, hitchhiking was quite acceptable. Sort of lots of people did it. People just be fine. And I at the time there was in the 1950s, you had the beats, the beat poets and the beatniks, and Jack Kerouac was one of them. And you had the artists. You had people like Jackson Pollock, and a lot of those people connected with Zen. So Zen was kind of coming into consciousness, into sort of being introduced towards the West by people like D.T. Suzuki. So, and the beats often connected with the kind of Zen, kind of slightly crazy wisdom type thing. And the musicians were there as well. And so Kerouac wrote this book called On the Road. So I was reading On the Road as I went on the road in America. And he also wrote one called The Dharma Bums. So that was all about, people kind of like connecting with Buddhism in 1950s in America and California and stuff like that. And I just wanted to, invite Sumana to talk about his connection with all of that, because I know you went around America and you connect with the beats and everything. Do you want to say a bit about that?
Yeah, okay. Well, I spent 2 years in North America in the 70s, 72 to 74. But I think things go back a little bit further than that for me. It seems when I left primary school and went to secondary school, and I lived in North London, and I went to the same school as my dad and my brother had been. My brother was still at the school in the Angel, Islington. And I came across a book there. It's before Jack Kerouac. It was introduced in the English classes. It was called The Autobiography of a Supertramp. I don't know, some of you might have heard of it or read it. And it was by a poet called W.H. Davies. And I was about 11 or 12 then. And it was his account of, you could say, tramping around Wales, England, Scotland, and then America. And I was very taken with this book. And exactly why, it's hard to say, but it was a sort of way you could travel around and have direct experience without having a lot of money. I think that was one of its attractions to me. So I didn't somehow see myself as having a lot of money in this, or particularly interested in sort of money. But I was interested in life experiences. And I used to explore London at that time, particularly at the weekends. Sometimes with a friend, I'd go into museums. The Tower of London would fascinate me, the Maritime Museum, Science Museum. And it was only quite a lot later, coming across in a survey of Buddhism by Sangharakshita, the founder of the Triratna. In his section on mindfulness, there's got this section from this poem. It says, "What use this life," I haven't got it all correct, "of strife and care, if we have no time to stop and stare?" And that was a direct quote from W.H. Davies, this author, which I'd sort of connected with at this very young age. So that sense is still with me, the necessity just to be able to stop and enjoy the simple natural things around us. So that was a big influence, that book, coming across that book at that early age. And it sort of, I don't think the school meant this, but it set me off on sort of, in a way, unconventional. I haven't sort of somehow, whatever fitting it in is, I haven't sort of wished to or been able to fit in a sort of a limited sense. So Jack Kerouac came about in my life through my brother. I had an older brother, 4 years older. He died about 5 years ago. And he was influenced by what were Bohemians. I think they were almost prior to the beatniks, the Bohemians, and he was connected with people at the Art College in Hornsey in London, and people into folk music or skiffle at that time, and also in having adventures and travels. So and he'd gone on various trips, wandering, busking in south of France and Paris, which was a big thing at that time in the late 50s. And I was sort of, in some ways, following in his footsteps. So that eventually led to me busking in Europe and then meeting Americans and going to America. So that was my intro to America.
So when you went to America, where did you go? Whereabouts?
Well, first of all, I met a couple of people in a place in northern Spain where they have the bull running, and one was from the East Coast and one was from the West Coast. One was a guitar player, Bill Frankel, and the other one was Jan Ellis from just north of San Francisco, Marin County. And they both said, you must come over to America. You'd get on well there. I was playing banjo, busking at that time in France and Spain and Italy. And so when I got back to England, I had an invitation to a party in New Jersey from Bill Frankel. And I got a ticket very quickly and set off for America. So that was my arrival in America.
And did you? Huh?
Yeah. Oh, and just by the by, those of you who know your banjo playing, you've heard of Earl Scruggs. He sort of pioneered this particular form of playing, which I don't do. It's called Scruggs playing, 3-finger bluegrass. And I just happened to be in Greenwich Village, wandering around there, and there was Earl Scruggs just walking around in the street. It was almost like some vision,
Yeah. And did you travel around a lot when you were there? 2 years?
Quite a bit, yeah, quite a bit. It was more or less a year in America, and then a year in Canada. North America, as I say, Canada is quite different, but it is North America. But from hanging out with Bill in New Jersey near New York, I headed off down south to where the old time banjo players were in Tennessee, and I didn't go to Carolina, but I passed through Carolina. But I went to Tennessee, Knoxville, and met some old timers there, and from there travelled further right across to eventually stopped in Nashville, played outside the Grand Ole Opry, carried on to the West Coast, and various adventures, which I could say a lot about along the way. But I think America, after being in England and in Europe, it was just so vast, traveling across America. It just opened me up psychically, and even spiritually. Just this world is so big, and the spaces, and like these spaces were opening up in myself. I was getting a much bigger perspective on things as I travelled across.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was there and just coming into Los Angeles, hitching into Los Angeles and seeing all the palm trees and that and the chocolate-coloured sky, and then getting to the Pacific and there were these weird-looking islands that were basically oil refinery things, but they'd covered them up in, they'd made it look nice, with some palm trees and things. It was so exotic, and I remember being up in going up the Pacific Coast Highway 1, past Monterey and Big Sur and all those really beautiful places. And then I remember meeting somebody who he was a Christian and young guy, and he kind of was taking it all literally. He had a staff and he had a little bag, tiny little bag, and he was hitchhiking, and he'd been doing it for 18 months, and he'd go like Texas to Alaska, and then Alaska to Florida, and then back. He'd been across about 15 times, So you could do that there, you could. I think that's that Walt Whitman thing of like the landscape being the person or something, that expansiveness and stuff. Yeah. So it's a bit like what you're talking about, isn't it? The possibilities there.
Yes, I think coming from Europe, coming from England, coming from Europe, which is quite tight, actually. It's quite tight in space. I didn't realize it until I got to America and experienced that. So much beauty there, natural beauty, and so much space. Although there were concerns about the environment even then, but it opened me up spiritually, the experiences I was having. And I wasn't consciously I was just looking for adventure and life, really. And coming into a range of people, the images from films and television of America is sort of this very rich, abundant country, and it has got that side, but there was such a range of human beings there, and I was very open to meeting them as they were. Going down south, people in New Jersey, New York said, "Don't go down south." There was a lot of sort of fear about what's called redneck country, but I just went down there. I just went down there, and we just had all these met different people and took them in, really, was taking in their lives and having an effect on me, and the question, what is life about, was sort of really becoming more and more strong within me. Along with this sense of freedom, I was sort of had a relative freedom. I found out I could make my way just playing a few tunes, and I seemed to get enough money to get food, find a place to stay, So it had a big effect, on me, the travels. And I think there was an irony at that time. A lot of people looking for spiritual life were going off to India and the East. And somehow I'd gone west and sort of somehow discovered or awoken in myself a sort of a spiritual quest. So that irony I really like that irony, that in America, which is often seen, as quite an awful materialistic place, I was able to discover some sort of, for want of a better word, inner life.
Yeah. I mean, I was a bit stunned by how hospitable people were generally. I mean, I remember being somewhere like, I think it was Kalamazoo near Chicago, and it was late in the evening, and I didn't have anywhere to stay, and these two guys said, "Oh, can you just stay sleep on the floor of our motel room," and a really thick carpet, and it was just natural to them. They just didn't, it just felt really natural that they just would do that, Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think yourself, Dharmabandha and myself were all over America in that sort of period of time around the early to mid 70s.
Yeah.
I think we were all there. Maybe more people were there than we realised. You know. So.
Yeah. So go on.
Yeah, films and books and music had all had an effect. You know, American culture was particularly post Second World War. You know, books and films were, and the creativity of America was strong.
Yeah,
you know, and it was a sort of counter culture in a way. Was sort of emerging.
Yeah. Well, it's
raising up.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting dynamic, isn't it, between like America and Britain? It's culturally, you know, it seems to kind of go backwards and forwards. You know, you had rock and roll, and then you had the punk era. You know, it's like, you know, kind of people saying you know, different but both but important things. You know, coming from their own culture and stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the area I was in was involved with, like playing. In a way, I was playing banjo, and my brother was a guitar player, and he had a lot of American records he used to get from the American Embassy. He used to have a library there, and all these quite rare sort of American sort of roots music, which was having an influence on a number of young people, and when I got to America, I found out that a lot of the tunes came from the British Isles. You know, there'd been this cultural exchange going on for a long, long time. The early settlers have taken their songs to America. And if you go down into the what's called the Smoky Mountains, the Appalachians, it said that round Carolina and Tennessee and the Ozark Mountains, they spoke almost what was said to be closest to Elizabethan English, because they taken the songs and the culture, and they lived fairly isolated. And that was an eye opener to see the influence, you know, the influences which go back and forth. Yeah.
Well, you had the Pilgrim Fathers, didn't you? So
the Pilgrims Fathers.
Yeah, so they escaped in order to be religiously free, didn't they? Really? Yeah.
That was the idea behind it. Yes, it was too tight in England and Europe. So a lot of and America was in certain ways, free and accepting of people with different ideas. That's an ongoing story, of course, and there's a counter story to that as well. But yeah, I started to get interested in the idea of communities there as well. You know, they went back to those early settlers. You know, they started sort of people like the Shakers, who I think they went over in the 1700s and set up sort of communities. You could say spiritual communities. And the latter day 60s and 70s hippies were doing the same thing. They were setting up communes and communities around, and I was fascinated, you know, to hear about those and to visit some of them.
Yeah. So when you came back to England, when did you come back? In 74, was it?
In 74, yes. So 2 years away.
Yeah. And then what happened? What did you do then after when you came back?
Well, there's a few stories in between, but I got married in America, actually to a girlfriend who joined me after I was over there about 10 months or so. She came out and joined me, and we got married. and we travelled on up that to the West Coast route, Highway 1, right up to Canada, to Washington, then over to Vancouver Island. Then after some months there, I travelled right across Canada, hitched across Canada, and we were trying to get back into America, but it got found out we'd been doing something illegal. I'd been working in America when I wasn't supposed to be, and we came home fairly quickly. We couldn't get back into America. We came back to England. That was my wife at that time, Mary, and myself, and then went off on another little journey with my brother and his wife to the Vendange, grape picking into France. And I thought we'd travel on as a this was my dream, as a like a traveling band, but the others weren't really into that. So we came back to England, and then I got a job working on a sports ground in Surrey, a place called Stoke Davenant, and there I picked up different threads I wanted to follow, and I was vegetarian by then, and I started doing yoga and started doing meditation from the yoga book, and on this perfect setting in this sports ground, very close to the River Mole, near Cobham in Surrey, on the way to Guildford. And that started me off meditating, and then looking for other meditators. At that time, I wasn't particularly looking for Buddhists. I was sort of more interested in Hindu ideas, but I followed various leads of different groups in London from a book called Alternative London, and some of them were quite strange and weird. But then eventually I rang what's called Aryatara. It's still going, actually. It's a community just outside Croydon, and I was struck with the man who answered. It was Mahabodhi, and he stood out even on the phone, from all the other people I'd had links with. Stood out as something, I don't know, perhaps he was intuitive, but very clear and welcoming and open. And I thought, I'll try this. So I went along to Aryatara in Purley, and that connected me to what's called the FWBO, Friends of the Western Buddhist Order at that time, which became Triratna. And I'm cutting the story short, but after about just under a year, I think, about a year, I asked to move into the community. I've been affected by the going along to the movement, various talks, hearing Bhante talk about Buddhism for today and tomorrow. That had a big effect on me, and other lectures he'd given.
That's Sangharakshita. Sangharakshita.
Sangharakshita, yeah. Sangharakshita. Yeah, and the after one of the talks in Brighton, that's where the Buddhism for today and tomorrow were given, and where a poem called The Four Gifts came about. I stayed overnight in the community and asked to move in, which was a big step, actually. It meant leaving my job, meant leaving Mary, and my wife is. But it was coming from my guts. It wasn't sort of so much a head thing. I just, this is the way where I was being moving and where I was drawn to. Yeah.
Mm.
Quite a serious move, actually.
Yeah.
Quite a big change.
Yeah. So what was the shift then from prior to doing that to after it? What was your life? How did your life change? What was the environment like? And
well, I'd assumed that being married, we just assumed we were going to have children, family life. And that's what I thought, you do. That's what I thought, one does. I sort of assumed that, but I was on this path of quest for freedom as well. And then coming across the friends, or the Triratna, the other possibilities opened up. And the idea of building a new society, a new world, was very strong, and I wanted to participate in that more fully, and I couldn't do it half-heartedly. I think that's what was happening. So, from cruising along, oh yes, I've got friends, I've done a bit of travelling, I've got a nice job on this sports ground. I'm set up with, I got the head groundsman's job, and I moved into a bungalow. We were living in a glorified shed before that. That's what seemed, that's the course my life would take. But then this whole vision of being part of something much bigger, building this Buddhist society, or a society based on values which I found were just imbuing me, becoming more and more important, and doing it half-heartedly, I couldn't do that. So there was a change to wholehearted engagement, and that's I'm smiling because how wholehearted I've been is questionable, actually. How much I've been able to continue that. I've attempted to, or made the attempt, let's say.
Yeah. So it sounds like idealism, change the world, and all that. But what was your inner experience like? Was this sense of wanting to change the world coming from you having a different experience of yourself and other people? I'm thinking in terms of like meditation and stuff like that. How was it to be living with other people who had similar ideals, and what just bring it right down to the nuts and bolts of actual experience, what it was actually like. Can you?
Yes. Well, before I moved in, before I asked to move in, I was just experiencing a lot of you could say happiness and bliss and expansion, expansion, and including more and more people in that, and having a sense that you can change. You can change your relationships, your the way you interact with others, and through that change the world, so to speak. So it was idealistic. It was idealism, and moving into the community. Actually, it was very, very small. It was very, very small. It had big ideas and big vision, which came through Bhante Sangharakshita. But there was this small body of people who had already set their course on that, and they were impressive. There was less than 100, probably about 60 or 70 order members at that time throughout Britain, and a few in Holland and Helsinki and New Zealand, and although it was very, very small, and a lot of people from Aryatara, where I first went along, quite a few of them have moved up to East London because they had a big project there. So the Aryatara was very small. It was like an outpost. And yet it's thinking back, we had big ideals or big vision. And I think we were into making a difference. So it was building up. It was building up slowly, and more people were, one by one almost, were coming along. It was highly charged in a way, highly positive. It's quite hard to actually really convey it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I remember like being at Manchester University in the 70s, 73 to 77. And in those days, you know, like 90% of students were like left wing. So
yes,
there were either, you know, big things like the Socialist Workers' Party or whatever, you know.
yes,
And it, yeah, so it was a kind of, so you had the hippie era, the kind of late 60s, and then you had in the early 70s, it was a bit more, things got a bit more politicized. It was more like people were focusing on how to change society, you know.
yes,
So it's like,
yes,
but it was still relatively new, all of that, you know, that kind of slight rebellion. Because if you went back to the mid 60s, you know, people were still, you know, sexual revolution was not really hardly got going or anything like that. So
yes,
it's like it was all very new, wasn't it? And it was all there was a feeling of like, oh, maybe we can't do all that much. We're going to try or something, you know.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
against the whole society where, you know, in the 60s, businessmen were wearing bowler hats in London, weren't they? You know, it was a bit like that sort of thing, you know. So,
yes,
and
yes,
then it was when Maggie Thatcher came in, that was a like complete psychic shock, you know, because it was like, what? You know, sort of a swing over to something right, a bit more on the right, you know, and Reagan and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, maybe we've been in that era for so long, we just assume that it's always been a bit like that, you know. But no,
yes,
this idealism was there, and it was small, wasn't it? It's like, yeah.
yes. When there are different sort of stages or eras of that, and I was, before America, I was very interested in George Orwell, amongst other people, and then going to America, and I was interested in the Communist Party for a while. I went along to some of their meetings, but then I got disappointed at work. You know, that actually the workers weren't going to change the world. I saw that when I was working on the council. I was working as a groundsman, and there was a strike, and actually most of the people, although they would pay lip service, you know, they didn't go to the meetings, and, you know, hardly anyone turned up for this, you know, union meetings. And I was impressed with the representative who came down to talk, but it wasn't going to happen.
No.
I sort of, you know, and it's a bit like Animal Farm, you know, that people all say, oh yeah, let's do this. But in the end, it goes back into the old order. You know, one of the animals, or the pigs, that happened became the same as the former, way of doing things.
Yeah.
And then in America, I mixed with quite a lot of the hippies, and there, you know, a lot of nice people there, but also a lot of them, you know, very much into themselves, and they weren't really going to change the world. You know, there was. So coming across the Friends, or the Triratna, as it's now called, it did seem to have a definite sort of means of bringing about change, not just personal. There was that experience, but sort of a wider change, and it's an ongoing project. I think it's a big project. And perhaps it's the Bodhisattva project, you know, which is it's not an overnight story, is it?
Yeah,
It's ongoing.
yeah. I mean, Sangharakshita introduces the idea of the true individual, doesn't it? You know, so it's like, you know, you've got, on the one hand, you've got the group, and you've got the individualist, and then somehow the true. You got the idea of Sobernost, or where things come together into a third order of consciousness. So it's like you've got people being individuals, but they're also able to cooperate and build a society and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that, for me, that's what the order is very much about. It's like we're all kind of quite individual in our ways, but we're also, we understand that you got to cooperate with other people. You got to build something.
Yes. Yeah.
Or, that's where the real the intensity is, but it's also you build something of robustness, something like that. It's not just based on ideas, which then evaporate.
Yes. That dynamic between the individual and the group, or the individualist and the group, and becoming more fully whole, positive, true individuals is the task, and therefore being able to work together, from that basis, rather than just fitting in. It's not about fitting in, and I think people often go through that stage coming into the Dharma. Do I have to fit in here? And some are more. There's a lot of support there, but it's also about being more fully yourself as well.
Mm.
I think it's an ongoing task, for me and for probably each of us, and we probably come from different sides. The more collective or more group side, and the more individual or individualist side.
Mm.
And finding that middle ground where we can complement each other.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean,
I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
It's over. I've been involved since '75. I think I first went along. So what's that? 45 years almost. Come to getting up 45 years. So I'm still working on it.
Yeah. So it's I think people, we all have different temperaments, don't we? Really, and in a way, different strengths. So I think some people maybe are stronger in creativity or kind of imagination or something like that, and then other people are kind of stronger on things like the importance of building an institution. And those things can seem like they're pulling in different directions, but I think they're all necessary, aren't they, for the whole? It's like, I think Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the positive psychologist, he talks about creativity isn't finished until it's brought into the world, and so you might have an artist does a painting, but until he's had an exhibition and people have seen it, it's like that process hasn't finished. So it's like we need institutions and we need structures and that sort of thing, but we also need the individual creativity and the individual voice and connection with ourselves and that as well. So it's not all just about the structures of things or building structures. We need to be building connections with ourselves as well and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And we all add in our different bits, don't we, to the whole,
We certainly do. And one of the things which struck me on my first going along to Aryatara, my first exposure to the friends, was how different the people. There was it was a men's community, but it's also a centre, so people came along, small classes. Mahabodhi was the chairman then, but all the people living there and came along had quite distinct sort of characters and qualities, and that's what really attracted me. It wasn't sort of you've got to fit in here, you've got to fit in. there are sort of common qualities and common practices which are really important to bring sort of cohesion, but also our distinctiveness is also an important part of the picture. I didn't know how this would go this morning, but and I don't know how it's going either, how people are taking this. Maybe we'll find out a little bit more, but yeah.
Well, I think we're hearing a voice here,
Yeah, I hope so. And I will say, to be truthful, even after all these years, I would say a struggling voice. I think that has to be, has to be conveyed. Actually, this has I've made a big decision, moving in or going along and moving in and staying around. But it's ongoing endeavour, ongoing engagement.
Yeah.
And sometimes a struggle, quite a big struggle sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put people off, but I think it's good to, that's what I convey actually.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Anyway, tomorrow there'll be some banjo banjo tunes, and maybe a poem or two.
Yeah. So I think that probably what happens within the order is that you've got this kind of disparate group of people who are all we're in the order because we're our level of commitment to Buddhism is strong enough, is effective going for refuge. So it's like we're all strongly committed to Buddhism, and probably it's intense. It's intense because we're with people for whom their strengths are not our strengths. So it's like I sometimes feel like a bit like you expressed. I'm not very good at this, and I feel embarrassed about it. But that tension in the spiritual life is a good thing, isn't it? Because it's like it's giving us something to work with. It's painful at times, but it is giving us something to work with, and kind of. But we need to acknowledge our strengths as well, So yeah, and sometimes things can tip over too far. And we forget about our strengths, and we just focus, aware of our weaknesses and all that sort of thing. So,
yeah.
But we need our friends, don't we? To,
we certainly do.
For me, going to Buddha Feel every year is like connecting with my friends, and I start to feel able to be myself quite a lot, And so we need to be ourselves with our friends, and we need to have this more challenging side as well. Maybe, that's when. There's parts of the movement which, we don't naturally just fit in with because the thinking's very different. So, yeah. And it's like that. I think it's like that for everybody. Absolutely everybody,
There's some degree or other, yes. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And we can gain encouragement from friends often about the same level of experience as ourselves, as well as the people who are more experienced in the movement. But also, some of the people new to the movement are just quite staggering in their qualities sometimes. But we all play a part. We all play a part, and yeah.
Yeah. How do you create a society whereby everybody's really manifesting themselves, as people in the best possible way, and all the qualities, and they're all cooperating with each other, in a way that is kind of a more elevated form of socialism, isn't it? It's like you've got the care for each other, and you've got the individual flowering of everybody as well.
Yes.
So people aren't subsumed under the group, or Yeah.
Yes. Well, before my first phone call and to FWO Triratna and being impressed by the person on the end of the phone, which was Mahabodhi. Well, he showed in many areas of his life, he can bring people together and harmonize. We used to collate the newsletter at Aryatara, and just had a simple task. He had this quality of just making it fun and giving a place to everyone to contribute. And in some ways, in small ways, I've tried to do some of that, possibly with playing with other musicians. Have done, sort of just give people space, but we've also got a collective endeavour. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, Mike.
Yeah. Well, I really want to thank you a lot, Sumana, because I think you've given such a broad view of your own of yourself, really, but also of a lot of the issues in and around spiritual life and this sort of sense of freedom, you got from America and going into the South, and just meeting people and not worrying about what the people in New York said and all that sort of thing. And I think you just really kind of demonstrated what it is to be, kind of a human being on a quest who's open to what needs to happen and open to, but also, kind of very. I think what's come across is your real appreciation of people and, kind of trust in people and, kind of sense of adventure and, warmth, I think, has really come across. So also, really glad we've gone into like that, things like that, the individual and society and that sort of thing as well,
Yeah.
And thanks for telling us all about the early days of the movement, I think.
Well, there's a lot more I can
say. Yeah, but I think you painted a really kind of, nice picture of it, the actuality of it. And,
yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And I stepped in, Mahabodhi invited me about
9 o'clock last night.
About 9 o'clock last night, so I just stepped in and thought, I have to take this invitation and play a part, participate. Yeah. That's what I've tried to do. And that's what I'm trying to do, participate. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mahabodhi.
Yeah, thank you.
See you
tomorrow. See you tomorrow.